Babble with Ben.
Welcome to the show, Wynton James.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. It's my first ever interview and podcast, so if I'm a bit weird, I apologise, but it's great to get the first one out of the way.
I usually have my guests on because they are a bit weird, so don't worry.
Yeah, true that.
So what have you been up to? Tell us what. I was having a listen to some of your music in the car today, and I think you've got a new one out just today, yeah?
Yeah, so today, May 27th, I have a new single out called What If? And basically, I wrote it when I was in a dark place in my life, and I was in a dark headspace. Thankfully, I have a more positive outlook on life now. But I wrote it when I was just in a dark headspace, and it was sort of my way of communicating with the world about the improvements I think that could be implemented in order for our society to sort of progress. Because I feel like with modern day capitalism, there's just so much greed, and the people at the top are only benefiting, wages are remaining stagnant, and the people at the bottom are sort of struggling to rise. And it's sort of like our society's very uncompressed. We're not bringing down the peaks and lifting up the lowest frequencies. So yeah, and I just wanted to make a song about the corruption of the music industry, how I think that a lot of artists make it nowadays because of who they know at the top. And I just think the music industry struggles because of that. Like, I think that a lot of the music at the top just isn't as good as it used to be. So that's just my opinion, but yeah.
Those are some pretty deep themes, and I think you're not alone in thinking that as well. Like, I know, like, we've seen sort of the movements of Reclaim Wall Street. We've seen, well, even in the election just been and gone, there's a lot of those themes about, like, society has always had these sort of layers, right? But at the moment, I mean, I saw this chart where we're looking at the average CEO pay versus the average worker pay, right?
Yeah.
And have you seen those charts? Have you seen?
Oh, I've seen what some of the CEOs are making, and it's crazy. Yeah.
What would you guess if how many times more than the average worker do you reckon a CEO makes?
Oh, it'd be astronomical.
Over 300 times.
Yeah,
was the
that sounds
chart I
about
saw.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so I can see why people are pissed off about it. Because there's just, it's hard to argue that the CEO is doing the work of 300 people over a year, right? Like, even 100 would be a pretty nice take-home package. But you've got to wonder,
definitely.
especially when you hear stuff about Amazon, where you hear about the workers there, having to do their shifts in nappies because they can't go to the toilet. And
Oh, yeah. The environment of some of those workplaces are absolutely shocking, and I just think there needs to be change. There needs to be improvement. I mean, we look at, countries like Denmark and Finland that have socialist ideology, and they're ranked amongst the happiest countries in the world. And I just think, like, look, we don't have to completely, conform to a completely socialist society, but we need to start caring about, people in the working class. And, and that's why I'm happy, relatively happy with this election result. I hope one day we can have a Greens majority government. I'm a huge Greens supporter. The thing that people forget is the Greens have only been around since the 1980s. And every election, they're slowly getting more and more popular. And, having the Greens having their best ever result in this election was just fantastic to see. And I'm so happy for them. And it just shows that people are starting to wake up to the corruption. And people are starting to realize that, hey, maybe Clive Palmer doesn't give a shit about me. And, all he cares about is making sure his mining companies don't get taxed. And, it was the song itself, What If, is just, extremely political, but just my frustrations with the world. And,
When I was listening to your music, I did notice a lot of tension. Does that tension just arise from social issues, or is there some personal stuff that goes on there? Or
so, like, I've been, it's time to open up about this, but I've been struggling with, I guess, like, mental illness since the age of 11.
Wow.
When I was pretty heavily, I'd call it abused by my teacher. And just, I struggled throughout my teenage years with it, and thankfully, I'm in a better place now, and I'm able to handle it better, and I'm able to handle my emotions better, and that's just through therapy, good diet, taking care of myself, and if people in your life aren't giving you positive reinforcement or aren't making you feel happy, there's no need to get angry about it, because I love Sadhguru. He's a philosopher on Instagram. And my girlfriend Mirabelle hates him because he thinks that he's a part of the elites and he gets paid off and stuff. And I find that hilarious. But with Sadhguru, he says that you should not be angry towards people you dislike. First try love, and if that doesn't work, try compassion. If that doesn't work, then try distance. And he also says that if you try and poison someone else, you are only going to poison yourself. And I don't really search for sympathy anymore, because I just want to progress and move forward in life. But yeah, I got bullied a lot in high school, and if only I had that advice back then, that would have been really powerful advice to take on. And yeah, some people growing up in adolescence, they're just going to have a tough time. So yeah.
That, what you were saying about poison reminds me of a very poignant quote I once read. I think it was from the Dalai Lama, where he said that being angry at someone is like swallowing poison and expecting them to die.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you know that anger is very hard to hold on to. It's physically taxing. Like if you're angry at someone, I find it exhausting. Do you find that, well, it seems like you've been able to channel some of those emotions you've been doing into your music. Like what, apart from emotional struggles, what else inspires you? Have you got some favourite producers or?
So my favourite artists, so I actually have a top 5.
Yeah.
That I always say is like, that's the foundation of my music taste. So Def Grips, who are an alternative hip hop band, they're probably my favourite band of all time. Michael Jackson, who I believe is the greatest entertainer of all time, and controversial, but I don't believe there is enough evidence. Don't believe there's enough evidence that he did what he did. And I think that I watched the Leaving Neverland documentary, and as a former survivor myself, I could tell that those people were only using that documentary as a way to promote their own businesses and promote their own social media pages. That's just my opinion. If anyone else has a differing opinion, that's totally fine. But yeah, I just believe that, with people like R. Kelly, people like Harvey Weinstein, there's so many people that are like, he did it, they did it. Like, there's undeniable evidence. With Michael Jackson, his family defends him, his friends defend him, this person defends him, that person defends him. Like, no one's cutting off their Michael Jackson features from their streaming services. Whereas Lady Gaga, on her album Art Pop, completely cut off the R. Kelly feature on that track, Do What You Want, which was an absolute banger. But for morality reasons, she went, nope, not going to have R. Kelly on that track. And so going back to my top 5, Def Grips, Michael Jackson, who I believe is the greatest entertainer of all time. And by the way, like, a lot of people talk about like, oh, Billie Jean and Thriller, and it brings you back to like your grade 4 disco. I think those songs are extremely overplayed. Yeah. Like, I think that they're very good songs, but they're extremely overplayed. Like, when you listen to an entire Michael Jackson album and watch his documentaries that were created by Spike Lee, like Bad, Off the Wall, he's yet to make a Thriller documentary, but I really hope he does. When you listen to the entire album, it's like a masterpiece. It's a piece of art. And Quincy Jones, just incredible producer. He'd be one of my favorite producers of all time. So yeah, Def Grips, Michael Jackson, Kanye West from like a hip hop perspective, just because he's very much into, like, nowadays he does everything, but back in the day it was old school hip hop, and then it sort of progressed into modern day alternative, sort of pushing the boundaries. And number 4 would be Nirvana. The band with Kurt Cobain. I love the grunge era. I just love the authenticity of the grunge era. The authenticity of how everyone was just in flannels and chilling, and, it didn't seem so commercial. They ended up making it commercial, but at the time, it's probably one of the most authentic and just real eras of music. I love 90s grunge. So So going back to it, Def Grips, Michael Jackson, Kanye West, Nirvana, and Jimi Hendrix.
Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah, I love Jimi Hendrix. And there's not enough people at this school who like they'll go, oh yeah, Jimi Hendrix, but they don't really like delve deep into his discography. And I recommend anyone here to delve deep into Jimi Hendrix. Yeah, because he's the greatest guitarist of all time. What are your top 5 artists of all time?
My top 5. Oh, okay.
If you had a top 5.
Talking about me. I would say Jeff Buckley, number 1.
Awesome.
Jimi Hendrix would be on there too. I would say that a guy called Simon Posford, who does some electronic stuff, he is best known for Spongle and Hallucinogen.
That rings a bell.
That's I love that stuff. I would also say Infected Mushroom, and I would say Daft Punk as well.
Oh,
like
yeah.
all of those guys. They bring a little bit of something different to the table, and I think that they, would be, well, that's my improv top 5, absolutely.
Yeah, huge innovators. I think with Daft Punk, my girlfriend Mirabelle, she loves Daft Punk, like probably would be her favorite artist. And I also love noise artists, so like Dream Crusher, if you've heard of him.
I have,
just the highest of high frequencies and just compression, distortion. And I just love music that pushes the sonic limits. Like music that really pushes those boundaries and really, it's like, gee, I've never heard this before. Because you turn on the radio, you've heard everything before. Everything's the same, 4/4 key signature.
Verse, chorus.
Verse. And
bridge.
it's just, I don't like listening to, I mean, I do, but I prefer in my own time to listen to music that really pushes the sonic boundaries. And I'll play Dream Crusher for Mirabelle and her stepbrother and just other people. And they'll go, what is this? This is garbage. But to me, that's what is enjoyable. And that's why like on What If, it's quite alternative, a lot of screaming. I took a lot of risks with that track. And I really wanted to like try and push the boundaries for hip hop as much as possible because I just love being in that alternative scene. And I just think, I'm all for alternative music.
Yeah, absolutely. And that crossover between alternative music and hip hop, I think that's really taking off too, hey?
For sure, yeah. I think that people are starting to realize that, hip hop, I think, went through a phase where it lost its identity a bit and it was a bit generic and dull and boring. Maybe in the early 2000s and mid 2000s, it went a bit R&B and a bit generic. But I think now people are pushing the limits again. Kendrick Lamar and on his new album, which I thought was fantastic. Just other artists in the modern day. But
I haven't listened to Kendrick Lamar's new album, so you rate it?
I think I'd give it about, if I had to be an Anthony Fantano here, I'd give it like a 7.5 out of 10. Yeah. I think it's a really good album. At first, I didn't love it, but then once you delve into the artistic quality of the album, it's really fantastic. And there's a couple of albums coming up that I'm really looking forward to. Logic's Vinyl Days and Joey Badass's 2000. I'm actually making so after this single What If comes out, and I've sort of promoted the crap out of it, as in the music industry class, push and pull and push marketing. I'll be working on a boom bap jazz hip hop album with sort of alternative qualities to it called Vinyl 16, which is kind of a copy of Vinyl Days. And all of my Instagram posts leading up to it will, all the photos will look like they're from the 90s it's a very much a concept album. So there'll be 16 tracks.
Yes.
Each song will have only 16 bars of me rapping.
Wow.
So each track will be short. And that's sort of to like appease just this modern day generation of people with absolutely no attention span. Because I think that songs are getting shorter. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I think that there's definitely some artistic qualities you can do with short songs. But Vinyl 16, that's the next album that I'm working on. And I'm also working on an album with Mirabelle's stepbrother, Neil. Shout out to Neil. He's probably watching this podcast right now. And to me, Neil just like, he has the image, the sex appeal, just the vibrato shakes that The Weeknd has and Michael Jackson. And I'm going to get in the studio and produce the best beats possible for him. And we're going to try and make like the 2022 version of Thriller. So
awesome.
That's our goal.
It's a good benchmark.
I mean, you got to aim high, you know, and yeah.
I found that when I was listening to your songs in the car, that a lot of them are quite short. So that's a stylistic choice. What sort of brought that on? Is it sort of? I know that some people cynically think that that's a better way to make more streaming revenue because it's like, okay, 2 minutes, then because it's by the stream rather than by the minute. But are you saying that's more to get people's attention as quickly as you can, or?
I think so, but also like I really like Earl Sweatshirt, some rap songs where every track on there is like pretty much a minute, and I just think like, yeah, with some rap songs, it's just a benchmark album for me. I love it so much, and yeah, I really, I don't know, I just like creating shorter songs. I feel like I can get the message across in about a minute, and yeah, it's quite funny. Like a lot of the stuff on my Spotify, I'm not proud of, and some of it I'm actually looking to take off. I think some of it's quite amateur because it was music I created before I came to this school and really learnt the craft. Because I used to make beat tapes. I wouldn't add compression, EQ. I'd use stock instruments. And now I'm sort of learning, hey, like you should do this so that the sound is more wholesome and the sound is just a bit of a better quality. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I have got the same sort of feeling where there's stuff I have on SoundCloud from years and years and years ago, and I do think, oh, that's cringe, I want to get rid of it. But in a lot of ways, I think it does show the path to where you are now. And so do I take that off and try to preserve an image, or do I, leave the historical context of where I came from? So I think it's a question every artist asks themselves.
Definitely.
And it's, it's a tricky one. Absolutely. What are you finding, what sort of gear are you using when you make these tracks?
So my DAW of choice is Logic Pro X, just because I think it's the most user-friendly interface. And I love Logic Pro X. I've just been using it since 14. It's like,
oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like with Logic Pro and Ableton, it's like violin, viola, violin, cello. Like it's similar. It's not the exact same, but it's pretty similar and it's in the same family. And with me, I'm just used to Logic Pro X. I think it's the most user-friendly interface, and I'll use like a Novation launch key, of course, and just, I love sampling. I'll try and find as many royalty-free samples as possible. I'll reach out to producers, try and build connections there. And if you ever wanted to send me any vocal samples, I'd love to.
I might take you up on that.
Yeah, I'd love to put that in songs because I think vocal samples are probably the most powerful samples in music. Like there's just so many good songs that have come from a good vocal sample.
I think Kanye West said something along those lines. The voice is the best instrument, which can sound, as a vocalist and a singer, you can sort of go, oh yeah, of course my instrument's the best, but it is the one that makes or breaks a track. I find. I mean,
oh, for sure.
Look at all you got to do is put a little bit of a James Brown sample on a dance track and it'll go off. The same with Michael Jackson too. I mean, if you do a Michael Jackson remix, it's going to be very hard for it to fail. Did you start with GarageBand before you did Logic, or you went straight to Logic?
Yeah, so I was a GarageBand producer, and a lot of people smile when they bring up the past about GarageBand. But like, for example, if you know the pop star Grimes, who dated Elon Musk, she created her whole first album on GarageBand, and her label rushed her to create that album in 2 weeks.
Wow,
and, she had to basically slap it all together and ended up creating, I mean, if you look at her Spotify top 5, 2 of those songs from that album are her most popular, which I think is Genesis and something else weird.
Oh, it's that album, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember some story where she was doing like a week-long bender with very little sleep.
And
I'm like, and sometimes, look, if you can channel that sort of energy successfully, that's great. But for me, it would be mental breakdown, like.
Yeah, for sure.
I did start off with GarageBand too. That's why I asked. I'm like,
what's your DAW of choice now?
I use Ableton now just because I find that I do make this loop sort of music. And so I find that it's just the one that seems to get the results out the quickest for me.
Yeah.
There are certainly really nice things I like about Pro Tools, and there's certainly really nice things I like about Logic, especially working with MIDI in Logic, I think is probably the best.
It's very easy. Yeah. Pro Tools is really good, I think, for live instrumentation. The MIDI component on there, I just don't enjoy at all. But yeah, I really want to get the hang of Ableton. And what type of music do you make on Ableton?
Look, at the moment, I'm just huge into sort of disco-y house.
Oh,
I've got a music, a bit of music coming out too.
Yeah, my girlfriend.
Shameless self-promotion. Yeah,
yeah, Mirabelle would love that. When's your music coming out?
It's been mixed. It's been mixed by my lovely friend Rob Healy at Ghost Soul,
Awesome.
and so it's all been mixed now. It's just a matter of mastering it. Poor old Rob has had 2 of his wisdom teeth out.
Oh,
and so I'm like, okay, Rob, you heal completely, and then we'll fix this up. But it's really, I mean, I have put a bit of ambient electronic stuff out in the past, but this will be the first sort of thing. I'm working with my friend Emma Williams, and so she's done the vocals and I've done the production, right? And this will be the first sort of commercially aimed track that I'm putting out. You know what I mean? Rather than some ambient stuff that, I was never planning on reaching top 5 playlists, that sort of stuff, right?
And that ambient electronic, like it's got not much structure to it.
Yeah.
I mean, it does, but at the same time, it can be quite left field and weird. Yeah.
Well, that was the idea. Is it was designed not to take your attention. It's a bit like elevator music in some ways, yeah. And so, yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting that out.
Yeah.
And so So you've got, what was the last one you just released, the last track?
So What If?
So I was going to say it's What If. Yeah, cool. So what's next? There's going to be...
So Vinyl 16, which is going to be my 16-track album for Boom Bap. And then going to be working with Neil on like a pop disco house album.
Oh, cool.
Which is going to be sick. And I just love creating. Like there's even a mixtape I'm currently working on under a different alias.
Yeah.
So I'm Wynton James, but I've also got Wynton Ellis Jones.
Yep.
And yeah, Ben Charlie Brown. Both got 3-word names. Both got good names. I remember the first day I walked into class, I told the teacher my name was Wynton Ellis Jones. He's like, good name. Like, born with a good name. Yeah. Ben Charlie Brown really rolls off the tongue nicely.
I steal a little bit from Peanuts, definitely. But there are that many Ben Browns. I had to sort of branch out a little bit because there's a Ben Brown who used to play for North Melbourne AFL.
Plays for Melbourne now, actually.
He plays for Melbourne now,
Yeah.
And there's Ben Brown, who's an illustrator. And even at my local doctor's surgery, right, there are 3 Ben Browns. And so I'm kind of like, well, look, benbrown.com, Ben Brown on Instagram, they're all gone. So I thought, well, my middle name is Charles. There's a fairly famous cartoon character called Charlie Brown. I thought, well, I'll be Ben Charlie Brown. Because really, my name would be Benjamin Charles Brown if you spelt it out entirely.
Sounds
and I'm
extremely formal.
That's a bit rigid for a show name.
Benjamin Charles Brown.
Benjamin
I love it.
Charles
Sounds
Brown.
very posh.
Charles has been passed down through my generation.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I wouldn't say Charlie's been passed down through my generation, but we're not that type of party folk.
I think my parents were close to calling me Charlie.
Yeah?
So I was close to being called Jackson.
Oh, yep.
Miles.
Yep.
And
I see the jazz
Charlie.
theme.
Yeah, for sure. And Ellis, so I was named after Wynton Marsalis. We were talking about this before. And his father's name was, who's also a jazz musician, his name was Ellis. So his dad was Ellis Marsalis, and Wynton Marsalis was the trumpet player I was named after. Love Wynton Marsalis. Yeah, really into his music. Usually, it's perfect time when you've cooked dinner and
get to settle back.
Yeah, settle back and put on some Wynton Marsalis. Yeah.
Have you been studying at Box Hill for very long? Have you?
2021 I came in.
Right in the middle of COVID, yeah.
Oh, for sure. The online classes were shocking. And the thing is, I was on 100 milligrams of sertraline, and that made me quite manic. And
what is that? What is sertraline?
Sertraline is an antidepressant. I think I came on a bit too strong towards some students at the school. Just from probably being too social or being too open, and I've sort of dialed it back now. I've got a good group of friends now that I'm with who kind of get me and get my weirdness and get my quirkiness, which is just fantastic. And I'm always open for new connections. Like there were 2 new students that I get along with, Tree and Oak. A great combination of names.
Yeah.
And
the botanical.
Yeah. And I'm very much just a very social person and, always open for new connections. And also just with my therapist, like she's sort of been teaching me how to interact with people because I think that just ever since I got bullied in high school, and look, I'm not looking for sympathy here, but when I got bullied in high school, it kind of, I realized that it would make me like have these defensive mechanisms that would sort of make me burst out or act out. And I'm just getting those under control now. And, you know, I just consider myself a very sensitive person, and, you know, I love socializing, and I'm hoping that a lot of these people that I've become friends with this year are the ones that I'm going to keep for life. And
That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, I too was bullied in high school, definitely. I mean, I was growing up gay in the 90s in the western suburbs, so there was all sorts of traumas to deal with there. But I think I think it is something that, especially with the help of a therapist, that you can go through. I've been seeing a therapist as well, and there is a lot about what he calls healthy emotional processing. And I'm coming here as a 40-year-old man going, oh, okay, all right, so this is how you deal with shame, this is how you deal with anger, this sort of stuff. And I've found it really valuable, you know what I mean? Because
for sure.
I too would sort of very easily get overwhelmed by things, right? Let's say, you know, a pet was sick, or I got a bad mark at school. Quite often that would just be, you know, that would just result in me, you know, like laying on the couch, scrolling mindlessly, and, you know, like without even realizing it, being really tight-chested and sort of going, okay, well, there's all these things that need to be done, but I'm just going to sit here and scroll because it's easy. It's where I am. And it's been related back to, you know, that deer in the headlights sort of syndrome where something's coming and you just freeze. And even though we're not really, you know, being chased down by lions and tigers in the outback anymore, that instinct of freezing when things get too tough is something that's there. Yeah. And so, I totally get your experience of, you know, trying to integrate into society better and trying to, you know, be the best person you can. It's a really admirable sort of goal to do. For
sure. And I'm still maturing, like I'm still growing, and I think everyone's growing in a way. But I'd love to, I'm always looking to evolve and always looking to handle my emotions better. And I used to handle my emotions like really shockingly. And now I'm, doing better. And, you know, I even had I'm not going to mention any names, but I even had a bit of a psychotic housemate problem recently where, you know, she was just having outbursts and her puppy was peeing and pooing on all the carpets. And thankfully she moved out. And I think the way I handled that was very respectfully and very maturely, because I feel like 3 or 4 years ago, I would have fired back with insults that are just as degrading, just as terrible. And I'm really proud of how I handled that. Now my friend Ben is actually moving in, Ben Hicks, and he's a DJ. And we're just looking to make my share house like an artistic house now. And
those are a lot of fun, actually, those artistic share houses.
Oh, yeah. No,
they're harder to find these days.
Oh, for sure. Because people, I mean, just with the amount of funding that's being cut to the arts, like people are scared to sort of follow their dreams now. I mean, even with like my friends and my girlfriend, they'll be asked, well, how are you going to make money with music? And just complete ignorance to the fact that music can be such a, not that it matters, but such a, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a success, like a financially successful a career path to take. And there's just so many opportunities, and you just got to work really hard for it. And, you know, with a bit of luck and with a lot of hard work, like you can get there. Yeah.
I think, it's sort of getting the politics hat back on. It's that symptom of perhaps that neoliberal sort of philosophy that's been pervading the whole world since, you know, maybe the 70s, you know what I mean? Where if something doesn't make money, it is of no value. And I think, I mean, hopefully, I understand that, you know, everyone has to, you know, get a roof over their head and cover their costs. I mean, no one should be getting a free ride, so to speak. But this idea that everything has to be able to have a dollar sign on it, I personally feel, you know, that's leading to enormous environmental degradation for starters, you know, exploitation of people as well. I think, I hope, I don't know exactly how it would be done, but I hope there could be such a thing as art for art's sake. You know what I mean? Like,
oh, for sure, yeah.
Because during COVID, especially when, you know, all these sorts of businesses, you know, like Harvey Norman and the like, were getting millions of dollars worth of handouts, whereas music venues were going, you know, crying poor and Universities weren't getting JobKeeper. The question that I had, I read somewhere, right, was if you don't believe in the funding for the arts, right, just for one day, right, leave your radio off. Don't open up Spotify. Take down all the pictures off your walls and see how, society would go for a day without art. And that really resonated with me. I was like, yeah, I can't imagine a day without Spotify.
I mean, even in lockdown, people were watching Netflix. People were listening to their music. People were doing everything they could to entertain themselves within their house. And what did they do in that situation? They turned to the arts to provide that entertainment and to provide that little serotonin boost for their mental health. Yep. And like even in a way, sport is art. Yeah. And the sports are funded so well and funded so, I guess, like they really adequately fund the sports programs in this country really well. But I feel like with the arts, it's sort of just perceived as, I guess, just a waste of time. And, like if people want to, like my goal with sort of as the Greens are sort of getting elected more and just we're heading towards a more progressive society is to really lift the quality and the standards and just like the overall perception of the arts in this country, because everyone seems to turn to the Americans for art. And that's cool because there are so many talented American artists, but I don't want to have to heavily rely on America. I would love to have a solid, strong arts program here that is well funded and that is well supported. And I would like the arts to not just be perceived as that egotistical guy who thinks he's so great and makes songs and thinks so highly of himself and doesn't want to work a real job, if you will, because I've heard that 100 times. And I mean, what is a real job? What
is a real job? There's plenty of people that sit at desks, just pressing, okay.
Exactly.
And they get paid.
Exactly.
Six figures, and it's, there is this thing where, managers often get paid more depending on how many people work for them. And some people are there just so that the manager gets paid. So this concept of a real job, yeah.
And I'm all about legacy. Like, what legacy am I going to leave behind? And I think I was born into, a Siddhi Yogan family, which is a foundation that teaches, yoga and meditation and chanting. And I go to an ashram in Fitzroy. And I was born into that. And I just feel like from what I feel inside when I meditate on a daily basis is that I was here to help others and to sort of lift others up. And that's what I really want to do, is that I want to be successful in my own career, but also really help others. And if I do end up, finding monetary success in music, I would love to be a philanthropist and just give a lot of the money away to First Nations people who I believe aren't getting respected enough, to foundations for LGBTQ+. I've donated to domestic violence shelters for women, and I think that, we need to do a better job at, overall just respecting women. And the thing is, like, I even found that some of my behaviors in the past, in my early 20s, were unacceptable. And I had to reevaluate how I discussed, stuff with women, because I feel like nowadays with, men especially, everything's instantaneous. Everything's on dating apps, and, men want the home run, let's say, straight away. And I think that, getting therapy for that and just like realizing that, look, obviously I wouldn't consider myself a horrible person. I've never done anything horrible, but just even in everyday conversation, I needed to reevaluate and be like, okay, this is how I should talk to women. And women are not objects. They are people. They're human beings. And that's something that I've definitely been implementing in my head, because I think that everyone, like, it's, if you have an issue, as minor as it is or as major as it is in your mind, you should always look to improve on it. And I improved on it, hopefully. I hope that people perceive it the same way. And, now I'm in love and got a fantastic girlfriend, and I've sort of feel like, I feel like all the work of just reevaluating paid off. And yeah, I would definitely identify as a feminist and equal rights for all. And, you know, I mean, surely I hope that most people are nowadays. Yeah.
It sounds like you're fighting the righteous fight.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, we will wrap it up just so the people at home know how to find you. Where can we see you?
So, Wynton James on Instagram, Wynton James on Spotify or any streaming services. And yeah, if you know me and want to have a chat, Wynton Ellis Jones on Facebook. If I make it big and I end up having to delete my Facebook, I apologize.
You wouldn't be the first.
Yeah. Last signing out messages. Go stream Satali's new single, Smoke.
Absolutely, yep.
Oh my goodness.
Yep.
Satali is so talented.
Yep.
Like, I idolize Satali. I have a bit of a music crush on Satali. I think she's just wonderful. Great producer.
Yeah.
Kevin Jen as well.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Those two people are going to make it absolutely massive. And
Awesome. Wynton James, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Have a good one.
You too.